Hello and welcome to the fourth year of the Book Edit Writers Prize. It's a delight to see so many of you and so many of you here in the audience. Hello faces, hello everyone. We've got lots of exciting things to tell you about our former prize winners who were all inspired with confidence after their win last year. And I'm going to tell you a bit about them. Then I'm going to go on and thank so many thanks as well to give. So just to mention a few things about previous prize winners. But if you want to know more about them, do have a look at the blog. The website's full of lots of great, exciting information about our previous winners. So of last year's winners, Pavan Amara has signed with Madeline Milburn Literary Agency. Stephanie Torrance won a Faber Academy Scholarship for one of the Faber writing courses, and Claire Ramsaran was shortlisted for the Unbound's Firsts Prize. 2022 winner Julie Rea subsequently signed with Juliet Pickering at Blake Friedman, while another winner, F.Q. Yo, signed with Katie Greenstreet at Paper Literary for her adult fiction and with Hannah Shepherd Literary Agency for her children's books. 2022 long-listed writer Hamish Majaria has published the first in his thriller trilogy, the Harveen Gill Mysteries with Pan Macmillan, and that was just this October, and film rights have also been sold, so look out for those. Another 2022 long-listed writer, Iqbal Hussain, published his debut novel, Northern Boy, with Unbound, just this summer to great acclaim. 2021 winner, Malachi McIntosh, subsequently won the Royal Society of Literature's Giles St. Aubyn Award for Nonfiction for his groundbreaking group biography of the Caribbean artist movement, and that's coming out with Faber in 2025. It's called A Revolutionary Consciousness, Black Britain, Black Power, and the Caribbean Artists Movement. And he also published a short story collection in 2023, Parables, Fables, and Nightmares with Emma Press. So he's been super busy. 2021 winner, Hannah Hoare, had her winning novel, Para-Humanity, published in 2022 by Wild Wolf Publishing. 2021 winner, Mitch Moroney, launched the literary magazine Swerve in Ireland in 2022. And the magazine showcases emerging writers and artists from Cork, as well as works in translation. And we are thoroughly certain and definitely trust that this year's winners will go on to do equally wonderful things in the years to come. So this is your chance to snap them up. So hopefully you're gonna get very excited about that. Before we hear from this year's winners, I have quite a long list of thank yous. Firstly, thank you to the wonderful Emily Pedder, you can see on your screen, for dreaming up the prize with her partner, Aidan Walker, and for doing all the hard work behind the scenes. Thank you to Legend Press for their continued association and support this year, in particular Tom Chalmers, MD at Legend Times Group, commissioning editor Lauren Wolfe-Jones, who's going to be offering individual support and mentoring slots to each of the winners, and Olivia Lemaistre for her publicity support. I also would like to thank Gagan Kumar for his administrative support and Kezia Yadhav for her great work on the blog content this year. Of course, last but not least, this year's illustrious judge, Lara Hauer, who said of judging the prize this year, judging this year's Writers' Prize was a vertiginous experience. Countless beginnings, which always fill me full of hope and anticipation, that led to countless cliffhangers, because I only had the first 1,000 words of each novel, and I very much wanted to read on. The vividity, the richness, variety, and freshness of the entries made choosing a short list a difficult task. The future of fiction is in very good hands, and I'm sure you will be about to agree with me. What a collection she's chosen for tonight, from holy relics to historical figures fighting slavery. There is definitely something for everyone. We travel through Ireland, Italy, and Nepal, and we visit British cities in the 1700s and today. There's war, a plague of ladybirds, drug trafficking, pre-wedding drinks, caving, and a whole variety of genres from YA, thriller, and beyond. So grab your hot toddy, for those of you who might have had a bit of a sprinkling of snow recently. I know I have. Yeah, prepare for a night of marvels and wonder. So without further ado, let's head to a muddy cave with Jesus and David McGrath as he reads from his novel, Crack the Dead Donkey. Just give me 1 second to spotlight him for you. Please welcome David.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm really grateful for everyone being here. This is from Crack the Donkey Christ, prologue. Before the birth of a carnivorous devil sheep on the Cracks farm, And before God broke his silence out the arsehole of the poor old bishop, the foreskin belonging to that of the little baby Jesus was snipped off in a muddy cave. And because the way in which the foreskin fizzed and flopped on snip, with promised power of the Christ child himself, the woman who done the snipping told no cunt to do anything with it, not throw it away, not sell it, just leave the thing the fuck alone. But because the way in which they were told to leave it alone, the thunder cunts in the cave went and did the exact opposite of leaving it alone. And officially, neither hide nor hair was seen of the holy foreskin for 800 years. It and its box having all sorts of escapades in both the holiest and most sordid of places. There, alongside Muhammad when he fled to Mecca. There for the great barbarian invasion of England in the pocket of a Pict. It resurfaced by way of an angel who confiscated from a Viking on his way back to God knows where to do God knows what with it. The angel presented it to the Emperor of Europe, who at the time was trying to stay off the drink and didn't want to make any big decisions about foreskins. So the emperor passed it on to the Pope, a skeptical and cantankerous Albolox who, truth be told, didn't even believe in God the Father or his Holy Son or some foul foreskin from the fuckbelly of history. So God had to step in and got in touch with St. Bridget of Sweden to tell her, look, the foreskin's the real deal, and told her to tell the cantankerous old bollocks of a pope to cop himself on, which he did, and she did. Lovely stuff then, I suppose, the Pope said, and fairly lively put the holy foreskin on show in the Lateran Basilica. And there it was to stay, out of sight, out of mind, end of story. But in 1527, a German soldier made off with it during the sacking of Rome, maybe to finish what the Viking had started, only God knows. But the sneaky German was captured in the Italian town of Calcutta and hid the holy foreskin in his prison cell, where it wasn't found until decades later, in which time strange things occurred because of the holy foreskin's miraculous powers, foul smells coming in off the sea, and every dog in town being born with 3 testicles. The holy foreskin stayed on display in Calcutta for hundreds of years, where it was worshipped and adored, and on special occasions, the holy foreskin was paraded about the town, the nuns, the monks, the god-weird wankers making candlelit processions in its honor, doing prayers to it, falling over each other just to get a sight of the alabaster box in which it was held. The town of Calcutta became destination numero uno on the list of alternative pilgrimages. But the fizz and flop had gone out of it over the years, and all they could do was wait, generation after generation, for the foreskin to fizz and flop once more. And the waiting was fine, until the year 1983, when the holy foreskin once again disappeared. Some said a prophecy made by a Vatican librarian hundreds of years earlier had finally happened, and the holy foreskin had been corporally assumed into heaven and transformed into the rings of Saturn by God himself. Others said Father Dario, the parish priest of Calcutta, saddled his donkey in the dead of night and rode to Rome, where he handed the holy foreskin over to the embarrassed Vatican, its upper management exhausted by talk of holy foreskins, and also quite nervous from scientific discussion at the time about procuring a DNA sample. The manufacturing of Christ in a test tube had been suggested, and the church knew, because there were no dipsticks, any reborn Christ would have a lot to say on the church, and none of it any fucking good. The church knew right well they were not what Christ had in mind when he told the disciples to stay good. But rather than give up their silk slippers, it was said that the upper echelons crushed the remade Christ idea. Others said Father Dario was not so much a devoted traditionalist, but an opportunist, and stole the holy foreskin to sell it to a private collector in the Middle East. The truth was, Father Dario was resentful and bitter, warped from his lonely drinking late at night, He despised the veneration, the adoration, and the parades because Father Dario wanted it all about him. He slugged on wine and despised the monks and nuns and these god-weird wankers making these candlelit processions because he wanted the candlelit processions in his honor, because he wanted the honor of the enormous effort it was taking to put up with everything in his world being so shit. He wanted the prayers. And after a while, he had to admit that he coveted the holy foreskin and wanted it all to himself and wanted nobody else even to lay eyes on it. So after years of this private despising, in 1983, Father Dario finally cracked and drunkenly crept down to the capella in his underpants in the middle of a moonless March night. Se mio prepuzio, Father Dario whispered into the alabaster box, then staggered back up to the Casa Parroquial to hide it under the floorboards. In the morning, he could hardly believe what he'd done. He lay in bed, sweating out the booze and bricking it, his donkey looking at him through the bedroom window like he was a cunt the size of Kentucky. Then, sure enough, the theft of the holy foreskin was discovered by the sacristan, who screamed around the town in panic. Father Dario opened the door of his casa parroquial. Cosa sta succedendo? Il santo prepuzio, Padre Dario, e manca. Dio mio, Father Dario said, acting shocked and appalled, his donkey cringing something terrible as Father Dario joined the search parties for the holy foreskin with a worried look on his face, kicking a three-balled dog out of his way, asking the polizia who would do such a thing, grabbing them by the scruff of their necks, shaking them all around and screaming, "What kind of rotten rat bastard would do such a thing?" Calcutta fell apart. Thank you for listening, guys.
Thank you so much, David. I'm really tempted to make a terrible pun, so I'm going to do it. We're off to a cracking start. Yes, the jokes don't get any better. That was fantastic. Thanks so much. I'm sure we're kind of all agog now over what will happen next, when we'll get back to Crack's farm, what has happened to Christ's foreskin. But, you know, you're going to have to get in touch with David to find out. While you're thinking about that, I'm going to introduce our next reader. Susie Oluwabumi is taking us into the life of a young British Nigerian girl who is just about to move house. So yes, please get very excited. Welcome Susie as she reads from an extract from her novel, Call Me Adebimpe. So welcome Susie.
Good evening everyone. My novel's called Call Me Adebimpe. Oh mommy, my child. I wish I could leave my name here, thank it, fold it neatly, seal it in a box, leave it here for someone who dares to take it. Our flat has become a sea of brown cardboard boxes with us as human vessels bobbing in between them. Mum sinks sometimes like the Titanic, crashing at the sight of things pouring out of cupboards. Her voice comes in waves, peaks of Yoruba expressions. Mi o le wa ku, and English rhetorical questions like, am I the only one in this house that cares? When I was 6, I borrowed sweets from Benga's party bag. Mum either heard the crackle of the wrappers or the sherbet exploded in my mouth because she caught me. She hears everything. Do you think I was born yesterday? Mum said, her arms crossed after I stumbled over the lies I told. I spent the rest of the evening partly wishing I had never answered and partly wanting to know what the right answer was. It wasn't until year 6 when Mrs. Rowe was reading a poem in assembly and Jane had put up her hand to answer that I put a name to all the questions Mum would ask. Rhetorical. They were asked to make us think and not to make us talk. Parents, I guess, are the same, raising us kids to think, but not to talk, apart from when they want you to. Crashing up and through the boxes, Mum's Yoruba is flowing full force at Dad. My Yoruba isn't strong enough to totally break down what my mum is saying, but I can tell by my mum's folded eyebrows and the way Dad smugly increases the volume of the radio, it's not good. Last year, I overheard Mum calling Dad a stubborn goat. That day, Dad's eyes dragged Mum to their bedroom and the door shut quickly behind them. They didn't come out till after neighbours had finished and the street lights turned on. We are moving. It's messy and I'm miserable. But inside, there's a slight tingle of excitement. Not the kind I feel on Christmas Eve or on my birthday, but it's strong enough for my eyes to smile. How is it possible to be feeling two completely different emotions at the same time? Sitting on a rusty garden chair on the concrete balcony, I can see the boys from our block playing one last football game before their parents get back from work. Soon, each of the cracked blue painted doors will slam after them as they run in to munch through mounds of white rice and stew. They'll try their best to dodge homework, but will eventually give in or risk losing their football privileges. Amina lives opposite us, in a short tower block between off-white townhouses. Grandad lives in the one closest to her block. I can just about see into Grandad's living room, the afternoon rays flooding the room with a golden glow from the clock on the mantelpiece. I can't see his speckled grey and black afro in the armchair. He's probably fallen asleep on the sofa with the newspaper in his lap. And just past Grandad's is a row of random shops, the laundrette, hairdresser, which also doubles up as a Western Union, cyber cafe, and the best corner shop. I call the shopkeeper, Mr. Gavin, and his son, Mr. John. I don't know their real names, and I cannot risk asking. I found those names in the baby name section at the beginning of the dictionary. I chose them because Gavin and John seemed like solid names for solid people. Behind the till, buried behind dusty boxes of plasters and expired batteries, there's a weathered Indian flag. I can remember being about 4 years old, looking up at that till. I was only tall enough to see the yellowish brown drawers with faded writing behind Mr. Gavin. Imagine if each drawer had secret treasure maps of London for Mr. Gavin's family to set off through secret tunnels, looking for the artifacts that were stolen from India centuries ago. At 6, my neck could stretch to see the small cardboard boxes that our next door neighbour, Mrs. Todd, bought. One Saturday, she shouted at Mr. Gavin because she said the picture on the front cover was an infringement of her human rights. I couldn't quite see what it was, only that it was a frightening blood red picture with warnings stamped across it. And now, well, I'm tall enough to see the rows of dark grass green, honey brown, and pastel pink glass bottles. Mum likes the pink ones. I think because they match the colour of her lipstick, and Dad, the earthy brown ones. They only drink alcohol on special occasions, like recently when they said the sale of the house was completed. That night, my parents bumped their glasses gently together, and I stared into the bottom of my chilled Ribena, wondering how I'd break the news to Amina and Simone. "Oh, Mummy, help me pack this." My mum always calls me my child. I would have thought that the floating box branded with golden crispy McCain fries had come alive if Mum hadn't added her Yoruba. I've always found it weird because there's 2 of us, Benga, my little brother, and I. Mum set the box in front of me and stuck the label "Important Documents" in the middle of the logo. I have a plan to do nothing, and I think she wants to ruin it. Seeing the hesitation on my face, Mum narrows her eyes till they become thin, brownish black lines. Before she reels a story of how hard she had to work when she was my age, I get to work. Unsurprisingly, the box is already packed, and she hasn't given me anything more to add. What she means is that I should neatly arrange the box to her gold standard.
Hooray, thank you so much, Susie. Wow, I mean, I'm totally there. I really want Adebimpe to have a good move. And I absolutely love the names that she gives to the newsagents. I just think that's wonderful. She's such a great character, and I can't wait to, read more of the story soon, I hope. So we're going to go somewhere totally different now, and we're going to go to Nepal as Nabin Chetri reads an extract from his novel, The Red Moon Trails. So if you could welcome Nabin, that would be great. Here he is. Thanks, Nabin.
Hi, this is Father's Arrest. All over Nepal, people are talking about the war. It crept in slowly like an ancient curse and tore through the land, feeding on its soul. It left craters in the fields and riddled the walls of our homes with bullet holes. Smoke from burning tires, gutted houses, and torched police outposts filled the sky. The clouds thickened with a pungent smell of destruction. The hills became the primary zones from where the Mao's headquarters operated. The faces of men and women looked stricken like dead crows electrocuted on power lines. Men were picked up from the houses on the back of construction trucks and disappeared, while women fled into the jungles along with their children. In rural Nepal, people escaped into nearby towns to save themselves. The harvest songs were sewed up inside people's mouths, and the music of madal and flute that echoed through the village vanished into thin air. We lived in a small village called Jutpani in central Nepal. Our hut faced the hills of Gorkha to the north, the highway to Birganj to the east, and the south led towards the dense plains which claps hands with the dry Indian state of Bihar. None of the children my mother bore survived the black water fever until I was born on 24th August 1970. As an emaciated child, I was saved by the roots and potions prepared by the local witch doctors. My grandmother, Ratnamaya Basnet, too, had a strong sense of using local herbs as medicine. She knew by holding the wrist of a sick person what was wrong with them. She said that she was taken by a banjhakri when she was 13. The shaman took her to a cave at the edge of a forest and taught her the sacred mantra. She was kept for almost a month and released. Since then, she has been possessed by a divine power. The people blamed the government and the Maoists for the conflict, but the accusations did not stop them from killing their own, suspecting each other of being spies and traitors. The war not only occupied the terrain, but encroached into our lives, fanning our hopes and fears. My dreams were apocalyptic and were filled with fire, air raining burning birds, spiraling straight into the thatched roofs. Sometimes the night chased me into the forest, where I ran, breathless, hounded by a group of men in camouflage. A tiny creak of a window hinge sent shivers down my spine. We longed for the unremarkable days of the past, when we couldn't tell one day from the other. The police, once armed with only sticks and batons, now carried SLR rifles. Mao's cadres were fought with slingshots, kukris, and stones, welded incus rifles and grenades. The Maoists bombed highways, rolling boulders from hilltops to strike military convoys, and planted IEDs along roadsides. Even the Kacha roads were riddled with hidden mines. Villagers slowly abandoned their prayers and lost faith in the gods they had once worshipped. Summer heat stole the moisture off the soil, turning it dry and barren. Sal trees along the way were scaly white in the midday sun, their leaves covered with dust piled over time. The air smelled of sulfur, and when you left home in the morning, it could be your last. Grasslands along the border of the jungle near Bharatpur stank of decaying corpses. Fables told by the grandparents to the grandchildren turned into tales of loss and separation. Songs of the itinerant Gaine singers and the tune of their sarangi no longer sang the legend of great kings, and their folk meters now lamented the sound of gunshots lifting the birds and disappearing men instead. The peaceful nights were broken only by the ominous drones of army vehicles. Even at dawn and dusk, birds that chirped unfailingly gradually disappeared from the villages. Fear grew as the number of deaths increased. People had to queue with their belongings and move through the security checkpoints. The army intercepted the vehicles passing along the highway and conducted searches at gunpoint. When more than 11,000 people had died, the revolution tightened its grip and the war began to chase us right into our homes. One evening, as we were about to eat dinner, we heard footsteps outside, followed by loud knocks on the door. My heart raced. Father stood up, his right hand still smeared with rice and lentils, and opened the door with his left. A group of armed policemen squeezed into the room. "Are you Leknath?" one of the officers asked, a dark, burly man who appeared to be the commander of the group. "Yes, sir," my father replied, his voice trembling. "We need to talk to you," the officer said. "Is everything all right?" Father asked, hesitating. "You know better than us, don't you, Masterji?" the officer said, as one of the policemen took out a pair of handcuffs. Mother fell to her knees, weeping. I froze, my veins tightening with fear and anger. I didn't know what to do. Any wrong move would mean the end of us all. "You have to tell us where you're taking him," I shouted. My voice cracked. "Please leave him," Mother pleaded. "He'll be back," the officer muttered, dragging Father out of the house. I ran after them. The patrol van was parked on the road, its headlights cutting through the night. Neighbors gathered outside their homes, watching silently as they shoved my father through the back door. I shouted, but the sound felt distant, swallowed by the night air. The engine revved and the van disappeared, kicking up a cloud of dust. I stood there, rooted to the spot, unable to move or think. A deep numbness spread through my body. My father was gone, and I had no idea if I would ever see him again. The July night silence resumed, as if nothing had happened. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Navin. Really, the silence that closes over that really poignant moment is, really, we need a good 5 minutes just to kind of absorb all of that. But thank you so much for your reading, and yes, very powerful. And we're going to go from one loss to another as we travel back to Ireland now with Bernie McQuillian. She reads from her novel Light at the End of the Cave. So please welcome Bernie.
Thank you, Rebecca, and good evening, everybody. I'm going to read the first chapter from my novel. This is from Erin. Erin drove the hire car out of Aldergrove Airport on Friday evening. She headed west, taking the winding road for Clogher at the end of the bleak motorway. In the distance, under low cloud, lay County Fermanagh and the Culca Mountains, with the lakes and the caves and all those memories. Pale grey light lit up the valley in front where the rain was easing, shining on the clumps of rushes in the wet fields. Cows lolled on the richer grassland, and up on the slopes the sheepdogs were at work, bringing their charges down for the night. She remembered how, at Christmas, her mother claimed Santa couldn't reach their farmhouse because of the hills. There's nowhere for his reindeer to land, she said, when she finally got out of bed the morning after Boxing Day. Erin clambered up the highest point to scan the fields in case Santa had dropped her presents from a height and they'd gone off course into a ditch, the shiny red paper all sodden and ripped. She turned up the long lane to the family farm with its grassy strip down the middle. Fintan was standing by the gate in the yard smoking a cigarette, his sheepdog Charlie at his heel. As children, they had looked alike, but his fair hair was grey streaked now rather than blonde, and his face flushed with rosacea. The broad forehead and thick eyebrows reminded her of their dad in the last picture of him above the fireplace. Fintan was lucky. Dad held him in his arms as a baby, but by the time she arrived, he had disappeared. Their mum was left with two youngsters, a farm to run, and graffiti about her husband sprayed across the village. "It's good to see you," Fintan said, and his fingers briefly touched her arm. He put on more weight than the last time. She was glad she'd rung ahead so there wouldn't be any surprise when she said she couldn't stay. He must have changed after milking because his wellies were clean, and she could smell mint on his breath. He stubbed out his cigarette and ushered her in, said he'd made tea anyway. She couldn't just take the wetsuit and go. "I'll have a cup then," she said, "but I'll get my gear first." Fintan used to insist on a walk about the yard to admire the stock, but it was getting late. It was the silence that unsettled her after the bustling hospital. She went into the hall and glanced into the good room. The hearth was clean. There'd been no visitors. Upstairs, a layer of dust lay on her mother's dressing table and the holy picture hung above the bed. She found her caving gear piled up against the chimney breast in the box room. She flushed the toilet after checking the bathroom, and back in the kitchen, Fintan was fumbling in the drawer for teaspoons. He filled her in on the neighbours and who had died and who'd bought their land. "It went to the other side," he said. And then she remembered why she'd left this place, the divisions still visible through the ownership of the assets. "What about yourself?" he added. "Mum always hoped you'd find someone, even if I was a lost cause." He grinned with his yellow teeth and she saw another gap on the bottom row. She smiled back. There was no point in harbouring grudges. She'd been the head nurse in Glasgow for 3 years now, but her value here was judged by whether she had a man. "Maybe next time you're over, it'll be different, eh?" "You heard anything more about Dad?" He shook his head. "There's not many left who know the truth and none who want to talk." As soon as her coughing started, she said she needed to go. He insisted on carrying her bag down to the car. When he was opening the boot, she said she'd forgotten one last thing and legged it back up the lane. She didn't go into the farmhouse, but crossed the yard to the silent buyers and slid one of the doors open. There were no animals. Only Charlie, who appeared beside her, waiting for her to conclude her sneaky checks. Like a prisoner, he led her back to the car. She held up her left hand and the green stone glinted. "I'd left her ring on the bathroom sink, can you believe it?" She said she'd see him soon and started up. In the mirror, she watched him, legs solid, holding up that belly, and Charlie beside him, his only link between loneliness and living. Why hadn't he said anything about getting rid of the beasts? Down the road, she pulled in at a gate and thumped her fists against the steering wheel, the engine still running. Everything that had gone wrong stemmed from the loss of their father. Every year, the same lack of progress with the case left her feeling like an outsider. She was that little girl searching up in the hills, hoping her father had found his way back home, and always being disappointed. She'd only survived so far because she'd left this place. But she reminded herself she was not here to sort out her family, only to catch up with the old caving gang. Liam had taken charge, found their email addresses, said it was about time after 20 years. A weekend of fun and fitness, he'd written, and a chance to remember Owen with the people he loved. She raised her eyebrows at that. They all had memories that were best forgotten. There'd been no mention of whether Johnny was coming back from California. He hadn't responded to the group email, and she certainly wasn't going to ask. But she needed to know how he turned out, and, more importantly, whether he'd suffered without her. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. Wow, there is a lot of history there, isn't there, that we're really eager to find out about. So much, so many secrets, so many silences. Yes, I'm very eager to find out what happens there. I want to know whether Johnny has actually missed Erin. Yeah, can't wait. So we're going to leave that reunion though now, and we're going to head for a night out with some good friends as Grayson Anderson reads from his novel, Wayne's Night Out. So please welcome Grayson. But take yourself off mute, Grayson.
Okay, thank you. All right, bear with me. Okay. Hospitals are funny places. They say you shouldn't shit where you eat, and yet in hospitals, you die where you're born. Death and taxes, the two certainties. They leave out love like that isn't a certainty. I've yet to meet the fucker who ain't loved, even if it's just themselves. What is love? It can't be quantified. Jewelry shops give it a good try. I love you this amount of carats. Hallmark put words to scenes. You know, scenes of proposals, holidays, births, celebrations. The reality is that love covers so much more. The misunderstandings, quarrels, the hate you stemmed from frustration, the why don't you listen to me, the my way's better than yours, passion, rage. Love is multifaceted, but that don't sell. The true definition of boring nights, long silences, sexual hiatuses, and yet the magnetism that bonds you, holds you throughout it all. The comfort of familiarity, the uniformity, the naked truth of character and personality, quirks, endearments, subtle, intermittent reminders of the reasons why you started the journey. I remember reading a poem about that shit. Love is anger, love is rage, love leaves tears upon this page. Love is the spectrum of emotions, a balm to soothe, an irritant to inflame, and yet we crave it all the same. Love, who the fuck needs it? And yet, who can survive without it? Big man, anywhere? The Uber driver ruins the thought process. Big man. I swear big is my pronoun. Everywhere I go, it's big man, big G, big Giles. Like Giles is that common a name. In the States, it's big homie or big dog. I should replace the Mr. on all of my correspondence to big. Yes, sir, just in that corner. The bishop, the start of many evenings back in the day. It was always the starting point. We don't catch up as much as we used to, but we still refer to this as our local. We shouldn't even be out tonight. The wedding's tomorrow. But after the day I've had, fuck it. Fuck love. Fuck hospitals. Fuck. Just fuck. Thank you, bro. The Middle Eastern brother pulls up to the curb. Safe, bruv. Have a blessed one. I remove myself from the Prius. Not a bad little motor. I like something a bit faster. Thirsty on the petrol. Hungry for the speed. A car that hugs me like a mistress. If it wasn't for Wayne's drinks, I would have taken the beast for a drive to Brighton or one of them places. Ain't nothing like blazing a ting while watching the waves roll under the moonlight, even in the cold. There's something spiritual in weed. Nature's gateway to higher realms of thought. Takes man to where he needs to be. Find a quiet spot and reason with God. That's what I need. A reasoning. I've got the weed. I just have to be flexible with the location. Hey, big man. One of the two Somali doormen shout out. Yes, Mo. Wagwan. We nudge fists. His brethren, Ali, nods before offering his fist for a nudge. Nothing, just hair. He shrugs. Getting cold again. Trust me. I agree. You man are soldiers. Ain't that bad. He laughs, shifting from side to side to keep the blood moving. Wayne and Leroy are in there already, you know. Seen. So, is he getting married tomorrow? Yeah, man. And you man are out tonight? His eyes widen. It's just a quick one. He looks at Ali. They share the, okay. Look, allow you to. I laugh. We ain't saying anything. They both protest with looks of naive innocence. They have a point. Drink is the great eraser of common sense, especially with us, man. Tonight's different, though. It has to be. Anyway, I halt the small chat. I catch you, man, in a bit. I step into the warmth of the pub against the backdrop of their laughter. The pub smells of history. Booths, stalls, chalkboards above the till. Charlotte, everyone's favourite barmaid. Gavin's at least. She waves, I wave. I turn left and see the man's them deep in conspiracy. Yes, my dons. I greet the mans. Wayne looks sharp, all in white like some kung fu master. Some white linen two-piece suit with matching white Casio watch and a pair of clean white Air Force Ones. It's too cold for that shit. Big G. Leroy gets to his feet. Gold tooth sparkling, red polo shirt wearing, skinny jeans rocking, Rolex glinting, suede loafer sporting motherfucker. I love Leroy. I live vicariously through him. Original ghetto superstar. He is the freest spirit you'll ever meet. Bread has been on the same speed since we were kids. Party, drink, gyal, smoke. He ain't just burnt the candle at both ends. He's dynamited that shit and still standing. Living on the edge keeps him young. I ain't got his energy. Lee motherfucking Dizzle. I greet him. We hug it out. Waka hasn't gained a pound since school. I'm worth twice as much as him on the scales. Wagwa G. Brother taps my stomach with each G. Cheeky fucker. Leave my keg alone. I move his hand from my gut. Wagwan. What you man drinking? Cool, man. Drinks on the way. He nods to Charlotte, who sends a funky wave and an exaggerated smile. So what's popping? He takes his seat. Not a damn thing. I take the nearest stall. Wayne smells like a fragrance shop. Hints of sandalwood and them fuckeries ooze from his pores. You slip and fall into a vat of aftershave, bruv. I have to ask. What, a man can't smell good? He defends. Define good. Allow you, Big G. Wayne laughs. So, why go on anyway? He asks. I'm here, rude boy. I give him a spud. What I go on is, I don't know. The question is a courtesy. The truth is, exhausting. My head's still spinning, still processing, still, fuck it. What you man on? I return the pleasantries.
Oh, thank you so much, Grayson. What poor Giles. We wonder what is going on with him and why he's so exhausted. Yeah, and hospitals. Lots to unpack there. But we're going to leave Giles in his hidden exhaustion, and we're going to travel to the heat wave of the summer of 1976 next, as Nicola Godley reads from her novel, The Sun Sets Twice. So please welcome Nicola.
Thanks, Rebecca. The Sun Sets Twice. Prologue, Summer, 1976. A loveliness. From the top of my arc, I could see 100 other yards just like ours. Bodies motionless under the heat, the sklitch of opening cans, the drift of radios. There were no sprinklers that summer, and the lawns had parched dry and yellow. The drought had been months, all our rose heads piled beige. I could see a new family moving in at the corner, 5 along from ours, a big sprawl of them.
Sorry, Nicola, sorry, I interrupted because I tried to mute someone else and I accidentally muted you instead. I'm so sorry. If you wouldn't mind, yeah.
Okay, shall I start from the beginning?
Yeah, please do. I'm so sorry, everybody. If everyone else can just keep their mics off, that would be great. Sorry, Nicola.
No worries. The Sun Sets Twice. Prologue, Summer, 1976. A loveliness. From the top of my arc, I could see 100 other yards, just like ours. Bodies motionless under the heat, the sklitch of opening cans, the drift of radios. There were no sprinklers that summer, and the lawns had parched, dry and yellow. The drought had been months, all our rose heads piled beige. I could see a new family moving in at the corner, 5 along from ours, a big sprawl of them, and a girl the same age. I felt cool in the swing and fall of my own wake, spit, smoothed arms to heighten the breeze. As I closed my eyes, aiming higher, for that moment, weightless, both wishing and dreading to go all the way round. Impossibly, I could hear rain. A tapping on the path. Pops light as bubble wrap. Looking above, I found the sky still a burn of blue. But all around, falling glossy red globs, landing on my face and lap. Red drops all split and wings. My throat braced to scream. I saw people running indoors, their washing strewn. A shirt with his arms aghast on the lawn. What was the song? Ladybird, ladybird, fly away home. Your house is on fire. Your children are gone. Summer, 1983. cloud. I reach down the tall crystal tumbler with smoothed-in base, grab the ice tray, crack out 2 clinks, add 3 capfuls of clear from the green, and top up with fizz from the yellow bottle, a routine I can do in my sleep. The bitter of it sets my teeth. I wait a second for the ice cubes, the whine as they go under, and then the snap like hard-thrown dice. No lemons, afraid, Edie. Ah, no, that's perfect as it is, pet, perfect. Edie, my gran, beams me a grateful smile, green eyes warm. Her skin is lined in light crinkles, like cooled, boiled milk. We are back from church, the day lazy ahead. She turns back, sinks into the afternoon matinee, where a woman in uniform is looking at a chimney-shaped hat in a window. Then, in the next scene, she's wearing it. Edie finds this hilarious. She sighs and squeezes down a gulp, the thinning ice at her dentures. Whenever she brings a fresh one to her lips, her hand shakes, and the ice tinkles like a chandelier on the edge of an earthquake. I soft click the front door and head my bike out to the lane. The girl from the corner house is there, biting her nails. She doesn't exactly smile as I approach, just bares her teeth. She wheels her bike alongside me. She's wearing fluorescent socks and a headband with her dungarees. She turns to inspect me with juicy fruit breath. On cue, the 2 Dobermans at 45 yelp as we round the elbow of our road. Lion-sized pads splay through the fence. The larger dog, Talos, had always sensed my fear. If I passed him in the street, his oblong nose would every time jab into my crotch. He leaps now, jumps so high that flob from his jowls flick-flacks through the air. And we run, pedals gashing shins, and duck the ginnel to the main road, our feet clumping past curls of dog shit, flies spitting like hot oil. We stop, gasp for breath, laugh. I'm Merle, she says, and holds out a hand, enclosing mine in a firm shake. Yeah, I know you from school. Yeah, she squints at me. And you're the quiet kid. I'm Pip. Yeah, quiet, I guess. We couldn't be less alike. Over the years, I had watched her. She always had the latest everything. Roller boots, swing ball. Now I noticed the Walkman on her hip. Her bike is a purple Pioneer with white royal icing handlebars. It came with the sparkly spoke clip-ons that connected into a halo of light whenever she went past our house. My rally is second-hand sky blue with navy handlebars, a wisp. Where are you going? Can I tag along? She asks. I shrug. She follows. A few hundred yards and we turn off the main road, steep down through the trees and breaking angles through reedy grass, seed heads snapping at our knees. We smooth out onto the cut, a long gash in the landscape where the old train tracks used to run, a place I come to kick things, throw stones at things. I only ever came here by myself. Sometimes I would find mysteries, like thousands of tiny plastic pieces spilt from huge tubs, rolled down the embankment, all mixed into colours like smashed up rainbows. Cherry Aid, Merle asks, reaching into her rucksack, passing the bottle through the air like a pink blimp. I shrug. Cherry Aid is summer. Merle grabs the blimp and pours it into her mouth from high, so it fizzes up like a fountain. She coughs, laughs, hold it out to me. The sun is enclosed down here. Heat hammers off the slopes on each side, warm and heady. I take a swig too fast and my eyes stream. So, it's just you and your gran then? Yeah, I mop at the tears with my sleeve. Your mum dead then? No, she's away. She works away. Your dad? I don't know how to answer. My dad was a question for me too. We come to a moss plush sofa and an old greened fridge. Merle, excited, jumps off her bike, runs over, reaching for the open fridge. Darling, what will you have? A G&T? Perhaps a screwball? She perches on the arm, smoking a plucked grass stem, like it's a long cigarette holder. When do you last see your mum then? Merle carefully puts down her invisible cocktail glass. Christmas. The wind churns up a mini twister by our feet. Parents are hard though. That's the truth. When my older sister visits, she has to be loaded on tranquilizers.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicola. And please, everybody note her fantastic professionalism when I made a mistake. So yeah, thank you so much. It's a really beautiful reading and takes me, I know, well, not quite back to then, but you know, I do remember loving a Walkman. Yeah, so and also kind of strangely, I don't want to admit it, but I kind of like the idea of taking tranquilizers when I go home. I'm thinking about that now. So yeah, thank you so much. You can already feel that tension developing between those two girls, and I'm really keen to explore that further. So yeah, exciting. Next up, we are heading to another kind of sealed world now, and we're going to hear from Mike Murray as he reads from his novel, The Cocklemen, sorry. Please welcome Mike.
The Cocklemen, Chapter 1. I'm Eddie Mills. I'm an honest man. So let's start by telling you I'm writing this in my cell in H&B Manchester, detained at His Majesty's pleasure. Most call the jail Strangeways. I'm 3 miles from the Salford Street where I grew up almost 60 years ago. I understand you need to know what you're reading, so here goes. It's easier to say what it's not. This isn't a misery memoir, nor is it a here's my heart on a page fable you read while plucking paper tissues from a box. If you must, you can say mine is a rags to riches story, as I was born to be nothing, but I turned myself into something. There's romance too. I'll put that in. And I'll pass on some solid business advice I picked up along the way. Make no mistake, this is not a crime story or some such fantasy. I'm writing about the world I know, a world that the books I find on the prison library shelves pretty much ignores. A thing you need to know is that during the 1980s, I found a product where demand outstrips supply. The risks involved put many off, but not me. Methylene dioxymethamphetamine, MDMA. You'll know it as ecstasy, or E. I was a recreational drug user, immersed in rave culture. I started out buying E for my mates. Some call me a drug dealer, but I prefer drug trafficker. I promoted myself to transporting drugs across borders and left to selling to others and made more money. Now, where to start? I've read a few books. I understand the rules. You need to see where I am. So let me paint you a picture. Strangeways is a Cat A Victorian prison. There are 9 wings, 2 grey stone block buildings and a yard. Sunshine doesn't reach my cell, although wind and rain somehow do. There's always noise, which comes with people, and smell, people again, but I blank them out. My cell is a small, confined space with a steel door and a steel toilet with a steel sink behind a screen in the corner. There's a bed with a thin mattress, a table and a chair that I'm sitting on now. I have a framed picture of my family on the table. The glass panel has been removed as we're not allowed anything we could use to harm ourselves or anyone else. I'm lucky to have my own cell. Prisoners are usually dubbed up at least 2, if not 3, to each overcrowded cell, except me. But that's just me. Even if I tiptoe stand, I can't touch the ceiling. Natural light falls upon a high barred window. If I stand on the chair, I can reach it, but mesh glass obscures the view, and all I can see is the opposite wing. The stone walls are cornflower blue. There's some graffiti, initials, girls' names, and an obligatory penis. Someone has kept up a day tally, count by the loo. There's an LED strip light screwed to the ceiling, contained inside a plastic cowling, once white, but now yellow. How flies get in and under it is a mystery I ponder while lying on my bunk. I stare up at them and listen for the buzz as they touch the electric bulb. Unable to escape, I watch their frantic frittering until inevitably they fall still and settle down to die. For the most part, the screws and cons rub along. Kicking off would disrupt the boredom, but the consequences wouldn't be worth it. The prison, like every other establishment in the country, holds twice what it's meant to. A recent report described Strangeways as squalid, vermin-infested, and reminiscent of Dickensian England. The Screws say the last money spent on the place was after the riots of the 90s. The hope is that over time, the prison population will halve, enabling it to close. We'll be a long time waiting for that. Even the temporary release scheme will prove exactly that, temporary. This country just loves locking people up. You think that works? Arresting us? Giving us a prison sentence and forgetting about us? Let's not pretend by calling it rehabilitation. A bit early for a rant, I know, but I'm setting out my stall, so you know what I'm selling. Jared will have a nag at me about doing that. He'll say, people don't want to hear your politics. Well, all prisoners are political. Who we imprison and who we don't are political decisions. You're kidding yourselves if you think they're not. Jared, he's the only person who knows I'm doing this. Jared Saunders of Saunders, Saunders and Cutler. We've known each other for decades. He's the reason I've avoided prison during my career. I trust him implicitly. When I told him what I was doing, he didn't believe me. You, he said, you're going to write your life story? Why not? I countered. Do you not think it'd be interesting? You never cease to amaze me. He sat back in the bolted to the floor plastic chair. You, of all people, know the risks. Abundus Cataline non nocet. My advice is to be careful. He threw me his sternest over his glasses look. Double palm slapped the formica table between us and said, okay, cadai questio. I'll make no further argument. Jared often drops in a splattering of Latin along with the accent and the boarding school confidence. It adds gravitas to everything he says. Advice to friends comes free and gratis. Say at the beginning and then throughout, on repeat, unequivocally. He took a beat. Say, this is a work of fiction. So for Jared, let me declare, this is a work of fiction. I'm Eddie Mills, husband, father, and entrepreneur. And this is my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I don't know about the rest of you, but I am very keen to read that work of fiction. And yeah, I can't wait to find out about Eddie Mills and his life story. And also those flies, which they have been mentioned in the chat, but they are very memorable somehow. The idea of just lying there and looking at those flies die, very atmospheric and slightly scary, but thanks, Mike. Yeah, so unbelievably, we're actually approaching the last reading of the night. I can't quite, it's just flown by. And we're going to be heading to the 18th century now. So please welcome Michelle Wales as she reads an extract from her novel, Jonathan Strong. Welcome, Michelle.
Good evening, everyone. This is Jonathan Strong. This is the prologue. Jonathan tentatively touched the bump on his temple, which was getting larger by the minute. He licked the salty tears springing unchecked from the corners of his eyes with his tongue. He was gashed and sore. As he ran his tongue across his teeth, he could feel that his tooth had been chipped. The force of the handle of the small but lethal pistol with which he had been beaten over and over had left him with welts and bruises. He winced as each tiny movement sent shooting pains across his aching shoulders, the core of his spine and the back of his knees. It was that blow to the back of his knees that had made him buckle, fall forward like a great felled tree, crashing at an unstoppable speed, sailing over the 5 or 6 wooden steps and landing with a thud on the cold stone floor of the cellar. Nearly 6 foot tall, but only 17 and some months, his height often got him in trouble. People supposed him to be a man and found a boy instead, laid a yoke on him that was too heavy. Unguarded, he was unable to soften the fall with his hands. The fall had caused the bump that was rapidly increasing in size, the cut lip and the chipped tooth. The fall had caused tears, mucus and blood to mingle and merge, to create little unchecked rivulets, made him feel conscious, aware of just how alone he was. The demon had caught him unawares, the pinched-faced white man with his soulless grey eyes and his godless demeanour. Demon, otherwise known as David Lyle, Esquire. On that first day in February 1764, when he first clapped eyes on Rotherhithe and then on David Lyle, Esquire, Jonathan had a faint hope that things might not be so bad if he worked hard and did his best to please his new owner. Lyle had stood at the edge of the dock, rubbing his thin-skinned, blue-veined fingers, and at first he had seemed comical to Jonathan, who had never seen such outlandish clothing. He had noticed his white wig perched precariously atop his head, an oversized black cape, which served to highlight his pallid skin, and his unfashionably elaborate cravat, its cobalt blue contrasting against the ominous, dark grey clouds. His dog strained on his tethers. The chill of that February morning had dampened Jonathan's threadbare shirt and had heightened the discomfort of his makeshift footwear. But nothing had chilled him as much as that first look of contempt that the demon had thrown his way. Maybe, thought Jonathan, maybe if I had no look upon him, they might straighten him eye. He might have left me alone. Demon had bought him from the ship's captain, a business transaction, like he was a sack of cassava or a bale of cotton. Demon was what Grana back on the island called all white people, cold-blooded reptiles, brutal abusers who had ripped him from his grandmother's warm embrace as she had pleaded, cried, begged, cajoled, and then finally screamed herself quiet. Taking him from her was like prizing a suck rock from its stony fortress. A primal, guttural, unsettling, cresting and crescendoing birth scream had chilled the air. He could still hear her screams as the cart in which he had been trussed up rolled further and further away from the fields where he had first played and then worked. Later in the ship, as he lay peering into the darkness, exhausted with grief, paralyzed with fear, he could hear Grana's screams, replaying them over and over in his mind, as lucid as if it were the here and now. Iron cartwheels turning, throwing up dancing particles. He watched them helplessly from the floor of the cart as they settled in ones and twos, uninvited, onto his sweaty body. The pounding of his heart, evoking the pounding of the women beating the cassava at sunset, grinding it down, sifting through it, removing errant pieces, pounding and grinding, sifting and cleaning, pounding and grinding, sifting and cleaning, trying to make the cassava more palatable for the children. Cassava bread baking on an open fire, lighting up the darkness of the night and the darkness of their lives, sweetening it with sucra, siphoned into rustic vessels, fashioned from cane, sewn into the hidden folds of their cotton skirts, sweetening the night with pilfered sugar, unchecked laughter, songs, lamentations, and love. These were the lengths these sister women had to go to bring some sweetness into their salty lives, to add some contrast to their stifled existence. Pounding and grinding, sifting and cleaning, pounding and grinding, sifting and cleaning, trying to make it more palatable for the children, to feed the men hope and to nourish the children's souls. Children like him, children of the enslaved, working in the blistering sun with their sun-kissed, emaciated bodies. Panic. A rough piece of cotton is shoved unceremoniously into his mouth and tied with sacking to muffle his cries. Panic. He is manhandled, hoisted up by two men and thrown unceremoniously across the hard card, like cargo hitting decking. Thwack. Panic. A fortuitous placement of stacked hessian cushions his fall. He hurts where his body has made contact with the unyielding cart. Panic. His silent screams reverberate in his head. Panic. His throat is constricted. Panic. In this way, gagged and bound without knowing why, the minutes merge into hours as his two captors jabber on noisily, unruffled, unperturbed, consciences clear. He weeps, he remembers, he evokes the lullaby of Grana, the singing and the humming, or is the buzzing in his head, or the buzzing of mosquitoes, unbridled access to his sweet and salty skin, feasting, carrion. But he is not dead, is he?
Thank you so much, Michelle. Such a lyrical expression of kidnap, abuse, slavery. It's not a very pretty end to the evening, but it is definitely a very powerful one. And thank you so much for reading that. Thank you to all of the readers. What fantastic readings from such a fantastic group of writers. An anthology of these extracts will be sent out at the end of the week. So, you know, you can look forward to that, but also don't forget to go back through the chat. You can find the contact details of the authors. And of course, you can always email Emily as well if you want to find out about any of them a little bit more. Thank you all for listening and cheering on these brilliant writers and the voices of the future. Thank you again to Emily for running this excellent prize, to Lara Hauer for choosing these wonderful winners, and Aidan Walker and Legend Press for their work behind the scenes. Thank you also to the readers, the writers, for reading so beautifully again and taking us right into the worlds of their novels. It really has been a complete joy to listen to you. We really hope we're going to be reading those stories very soon. So thank you, everybody, again. I'm going to be turning off the recording now, but thank you. And yeah, good night.